Intimidated by this little guy? Well, we're about to show him who's boss. Hey there, I'm Lena Brazil and you are watching Evolving Table, where we make good food that's also good for you. And today we're making these fluffy pillows of potato goodness that taste even better than store-bought. So let's jump straight in and get to gnocchi making. While gnocchi may seem pretty intimidating to make, the ingredients you'll need are actually super simple. The dough consists of flour, eggs, salt, and potatoes. But not just any kind of potato will do. Russet potatoes are a starchier variety, unlike their waxier cousins, the Yukon Gold or red potato. If you use these to make gnocchi, you're gonna end up getting a gummy mess. Today we'll need 2 pounds of russet potatoes. That's equivalent to about 3 medium-sized ones. Make sure that you measure this out so you get just the right consistency. Since mine are on the larger size, I'm going to slice them in half to speed up the boiling process. Once they're cut, add them to a pot of boiling water. Boil the potatoes for 25 to 30 minutes. Check to see if they're done by inserting a fork into the center of the potato. This will be the very last part to get soft. It's very important that the potatoes are fully cooked in order to get just the right texture in our gnocchi, so don't undercook them. Add the boiled potatoes to a colander in the sink and run them under cold water until they are cool to the touch. And be careful here, these guys can be tricky. Sometimes they feel cool to the touch and then they're still pretty hot, so rinse a bit longer than you'd think. Remove the skin from the potatoes by gently peeling it. It should slide right off. You can also make this step even easier by rinsing them under cold running water while you peel them. Now for maybe the trickiest part of the entire process, the ricing. While normally I don't like to suggest that you have to get a gadget or a gizmo in order to make a recipe, in this case it's almost essential. A potato ricer will give you a super fine and uniform texture, which will result in the fluffiest gnocchi. But if you absolutely do not want to try and cram yet another gadget into your kitchen cabinets, then you can also use a large fork or a pastry cutter. Just make sure that you rice the potatoes until there are no large clumps remaining. If using a potato ricer, place the peeled potato half into the opening and press it through into a large bowl. Repeat this with the remaining potato halves until they are all riced. Add 1 1/4 cups of an all-purpose flour. A gluten-free 1-to-1 blend will also work great. This is the brand that I'm using in this recipe. 1 large whisked egg and 1 teaspoon of salt. Mix by hand until all ingredients are just combined, being careful not to overwork the dough. And yes, your hands are going to get super messy here, but it's so much easier than trying to mix it with a spatula. Lightly flour a cutting board with an additional 1/4 cup of flour. And continue kneading the dough for another 20 to 30 seconds. Avoid using more flour than this. If you have too much flour in the dough, it will end up falling apart. Okay, we've got our gnocchi dough and I've got my messy hands, so hold on just 1 second. Let me go rinse these off real quick. All right, good to go. Now we're just gonna start forming that dough into those cute little dumpling shapes. To do this, you'll wanna lightly dust the cutting board with a little bit of flour to prevent sticking. And then grab a handful of dough. Cover up the extra dough with a damp paper towel to prevent it from drying out while you work. Carefully roll the dough into a rope shape until it is about 1/2 inch thick. If it's thicker than this, divide the rope into 2 and continue shaping it until it is no thicker than 1/2 inch. Remember, the gnocchi are going to expand a lot when we boil them in the water, so making them a little bit smaller is key. Then, cut the rope into half-inch squares of dough. Try to make them as uniform in size as possible. Now for the other kitchen gadget that makes this process super simple, a gnocchi board. This one isn't absolutely essential, but it is actually really fun to use. And if you've got a friend, a spouse, or even a kiddo hanging around, this is a great step that they can jump in and help you out with. Place a gnocchi onto a board that has been lightly floured to prevent sticking. Slowly roll it forward, applying firm but gentle pressure as you go. If needed, round out the ends when finished to create a cylindrical shape. You can also create the ridges on the tines of a fork if you don't have a board available. Place the shaped gnocchi in a single layer on a baking sheet that has been dusted with flour until you're ready to boil them. At this point, you can either place the gnocchi in an airtight container with a piece of wax or parchment paper between each layer and store it in the refrigerator for up to 2 to 3 days. Or you can boil them right away. To do this, bring a large pot of water to a boil and make sure to use fresh water and not the water from the boiled potatoes. And add about 20 to 25 gnocchi at a time. Boil for 1 to 2 minutes or until the gnocchi begins to float. As soon as each one starts floating, wait 10 to 15 seconds and then remove them from the pot. Repeat this process with the remaining gnocchi. You can serve it immediately with some fresh pesto sauce, or lightly pan fry it in a skillet with a simple lemon garlic butter and sage sauce. If pan frying, add 3 tablespoons of butter to a large skillet over medium heat. Wait until it is just melted and add in half of the gnocchi. Sauté for 2 to 3 minutes per side, or until the sides crisp up and turn golden. During the last minute of cooking, stir in 2 cloves of finely minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh sage, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Continue sautéing for 1 minute, stirring occasionally so the sage doesn't burn. Turn off the heat and stir in 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. Repeat this process with the remaining gnocchi. And sprinkle on just a bit of Parmesan cheese just before serving. Oh yes, they're like little pillows of potato heaven, and they taste so much better than the store-bought kind. And if you want a few more restaurant quality recipes, make sure you check out these other healthy main dishes. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one. One more for the road.